Hello again. I want to give you a quick overview of chapter 3, which is the religious background of the New Testament. This is a little heady kind of thing, so don't get too buried into it, but you do kind of have to understand a few things. One of the major things that's happening during the New Testament is a huge movement toward paganism. All the other countries, by and large, and that's a very general statement, that have taken over the Middle East are pagan in nature, in that they don't believe in the God of the Hebrews. And so they are a myriad of things. And so we have a pantheon of gods. We have the Greeks with all of their gods of Zeus and so on and so forth. We have the Romans that have basically the same gods, just named them different. And so when we get to the time of Paul, he talks about, seeing places where there are gods to be worshipped, and there's even a statue to a god of an unknown god, because just in case they missed one, they wanted to have a statue so that they would have themselves covered. And so it's a lot of movement away from Judaism and Judaism's impact. There even becomes within the Romans emperor worship, which means that emperors take on a deity status and they become worth worshiping and so forth. There are the mystery religions, which are not mystery in the sense that nobody knows what they are, but they are more a mystery in the sense that they're discovering things or talking about things that people just don't normally know and understand, and they're a little bit more ethereal in a sense. Along with that comes a huge amount of superstitial practices and so forth. We have a lot of superstitions yet today, but it's that same kind of thing of knowing that if you do this, then this happens. So it's a little bit more of the yin-yang, a little bit more of the karma kinds of aspects, even though it doesn't really have that Indian or Hindu kind of mixture to it. And then there's syncretism, which is that people are combining all these things together. So if one religion is good, then many religions is better. We can take the best from all the worlds, and this is something that's still very popular today, and utilize it and bring it into play. And so that's syncretism. But out of this grows Christianity, and also out of this grows something called Gnosticism, which gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge, and so it's the kind of a religion of knowledge. And so this becomes very philosophical, very much a heady kind of thing. So instead of your faith and your worship being part of your heart, it becomes something that you have up your head. And so it's in this plethora of religious beliefs and thoughts that Judaism is at play, and that Christianity is beginning to take root. So when you're looking at the Jews, they are standing outside of all these things, yet being influenced ever so by them. At this point, we have the synagogues at play, and we have the Second Temple beautified by Herod the Great, who makes it beautiful. We have the Old Testament brought into the Greek language in the Septuagint, and that was done during the time of the Greeks, of Alexander the Great. And we also have the Aramaic paraphrases of the Old Testament, which are called the Targums, and those are happening at that point. We also have during this time, prior to the opening of the New Testament, the apocryphal books are being written, and those are books that are found within the Catholic formation of the Bible, and typically Protestants do not have them in their Bibles. And so if you have Apocrypha, something that falls between the Old Testament and the New Testament. That's where this comes from. And then there's also ones called pseudepigrapha, which are ones that pseudo means not true. Pigrapha means that they're false writings. And so we have those being made during this time. Also, we have apocalyptic kinds of books written at kind of the end of the world kinds of things. And this is during the time, too, where the Dead Sea Scrolls would have been written and the Talmud would have been formatted and written and so forth. So we have all kinds of writings that are happening. Of those, besides the New Testament itself, the next highest level that's approved is that of the apocryphal books. And then when you get to the pseudepigrapha and all the others, and the apocalyptic books, those are often the ones that are highly discounted. Some groups, we talked about them a little bit in the last chapter, but we have the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes. They're all becoming into power here. We have the Herodians, which are people who are part of kind of, let's combine Judaism and Christianity, Judaism and Romanism, and combine those things together. Then we have the Zealots, who are pretty much opposed to the Roman rule. We have the scribes, which are the ones that do the writing, because we can have printing presses. They're the ones that copy the scriptures and so forth, so they know it inside and out. And then we also have the Sanhedrin, which is the group of individuals, men, who were the ruling power of the temple. Some other things, when you have the property, the land, and so forth, you have what are called the diaspora Jews. In other words, the Jews that are scattered all over the place. You have those that are Hellenized or made Greek, and so the Hellenistic Jews. And then obviously Greeks, Romans, all these other non-Jewish groups are Gentiles. And you have the plethora of them and so forth. And so you also have some proselytes, some who come from these other religions and join up with the Jewish people. And then you also have God-fearers, which are those who kind of pretty much adopt the Jewish way of life and so forth as well. Some other things, there's a very narrow education in religious customs and so forth. That was something that for Jews, your religion, your education came from your parents first and foremost, and then boys went to the synagogue and had formal training and so forth. Girls could get that training in some part, but typically not. And the content was really looking at getting everything you needed to know to be a good Jew, which is in contrast to the very liberal education that was among the Gentiles, which was not religious in nature, but all secular in nature. One of the other key things that's important in this, and the chapter touches on it a little bit, is the messianic hope, the hope of the Messiah. The Jews have, ever since the exile that we talked about in last chapter, 700, 600 BC, had always hoped for a Messiah to come, a Savior to come and to save them. And their hope and their plan was that it would be a king, a political power that would come and rise up and conquer whomever they were being dominated by at that point. So kill off the Syrians, kill off the Babylonians, kill off the Greeks, the Jews, so forth. Obviously that never happened in that sense or in the way that they wanted. And so when we get to the point where Jesus comes and he is very messianic, he's very much like a Messiah, for the Jews, they don't get it, because this is not the kind of Messiah that they were looking for. They were looking for something completely different. It doesn't make him not the Messiah, but that's why he's not chosen as their Messiah, because that's not what they wanted. You don't have a Messiah come born in a stable or some kind of a cave or barn or whatever. And he comes kings and robes and royalty and all those kinds of things. So, but that messianic hope is very much there, that the Jews are desiring that. And so in the midst of all of these things that are happening, both politically that we talked about in the last chapter, and now religiously, we put those things together, and now we kind of are setting the stage for what is going to happen when Jesus comes and enters the scene. I apologize for the hum in the tape. I'm going to try to figure out how to get rid of that in subsequent times. So hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, have a great day. Bye.